Hey, welcome to the Big Noon Kickoff. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. I guess the Big Me Kickoff. It's been a minute since I've done this. So, how are y'all doing? It is Friday, June 24th. It is the Big Me Kickoff, and we got plenty to talk about here. As I've said, it has been a minute since we have done the show. So, a lot of things to talk about here on the radar. Ohio State recruiting, big official visit weekend coming, NBA draft just happened, some NIL news, a lot of things going on. Plus, of course, there's always the chance to talk a little pop culture, a nice chance to just kind of get away from a lot of the noise that's going on out there in society right now. I don't know why the comments are coming up red. Let me go in and change that. That is a little weird. How about we see? Well, that's going to be about as good as I can do it here on the fly. Producing my own show as I'm going along. I was trying to make a couple of adjustments for some other things, and lo and behold, I ended up, of course, fouling it all up. You would think that maybe I would understand as a producer to do a dry run beforehand, but I didn't. How's it going, Jackie? Yes, it is Big Noon. One of these days, maybe I'll be medium-sized noon. I just enjoy drinking beer too much, is what it comes down to. So what has everybody been up to since the last time we all got together to talk? As I've said, it's been a couple weeks, and it's been even longer since I've gone live. Apparently, I've been a coward, since that seems to be the running joke on social about some of our shows here on the Buckeye Scoop channel about going live or not. I enjoy the live shows. The live shows are great. You guys get to produce the shows. Of course, I'm prepared with an hour's worth of material, whether or not I'm talking to 5,000 people, 500 people, 5 people. But you guys get to really dictate some of the comments or the threads that we go on. And if I don't get to everything, that's fine. So Wayne saying, good to see you on the side of the camera. Any word on the OLDL recruits? We'll get to that in a minute. Jay Moore, hey, I'm happy to see you as well. CJ, yeah, how's it going? Gary, it's great to see you as well. Kind of go through these. Zone 6 is on fire. Absolutely. Where goes one? We will get to that here in a minute. As you know, I'm trying to filibuster a little bit, giving people an opportunity to get into the chat, to get onto the show, because, it's how it goes. I could be on for an hour and a half. Some people are going to be on for 20 minutes. Didn't get, I talk about a topic before they get on, and then we have to repeat ourselves, and I'm fine with doing that. But if I can sit there and lay out for the first couple minutes, get an opportunity to get more people on and really start going with the content, then that just works better. Terminator 13, improving my terrible golf game. I haven't played 18 in years. I had back surgery. I can't get through 18. Hell, I haven't even been to the range in a long time. Asking, well, who's the next 5-star commit? We'll get to that here in a minute. I'm going to put that in the queue. Are non-scholarship players worth watching as we get closer to opening? Well, the thing is, and we'll get to that one right there. The non-scholarship players sometimes become scholarship players. You certainly have the Mitch Rossies of the world. There are guys that will go on and become scholarship players. I mean, these guys are very important to the program, whether or not they ever see a down of action in terms of in a game. That remains to be seen, but you need to have a strong walk-on program in order to be successful, in my opinion. And I don't think we see as much of a difference in certain aspects. It used to be that you couldn't go to training table. It was very different. I mean, yes, you are paying your way, and a lot of these guys still find other opportunities in terms of how they get their schooling paid for. I mean, some of them can be on academic scholarships. There's certain opportunities there. What about NIL? What about a guy that is a walk-on from a small town in, I don't know, let's just say Northwest Ohio? Yeah, he's not on scholarship, but he still could do some autograph signings. He could do something for the local, Ace Hardware up there, you can still make a couple bucks out there. And I think that's where you're going to see a huge differentiation point of where schools are going to be able to have players that may not be on scholarship. And I'm going to go even further to talk about maybe the non-revenue sports where you get 8.5 scholarships across the entire team, and nobody's going to be getting a full ride at that point. You got to get creative. And while the schools can't direct these NIL consortiums, they can't direct these businesses to, we need this guy to be taken care of and that guy to be taken care of. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of great opportunity there. And of course, the issue is going to be, will schools kind of crack the code of figuring out how to get from 85 to 105 and get 25 walk-on guys a full ride in terms of NIL money or things of those lines? And I know I'm really kind of getting away, Ohio Bookseller, from maybe what your question is. Are there guys that we need to be watching? I'm going to be completely honest here. On June 24th, I absolutely am not paying attention to a lot of the guys who are walking on. The roster we may see today may not be the roster that we see on August 1, which may not be the roster we see on September 1. Walk-ons kind of come and go. It's just kind of par for the course. I mean, generally your PWOs, your preferred walk-ons, that's a little bit different than maybe the guys who go through like the open casting call. Maybe the guys who go through the open casting call move a little bit more because, I mean, it's not all that's cracked up to be. I mean, you're part of the team. You're doing a lot of things, but you're not out there running the Ohio State offense. You're not out there running the Ohio State defense. You are the scout team. You're going through a lot. So it is a rare and special breed for these guys who go through and are the walk-ons. So, hats off to them. But, there we go. I'm putting a couple more questions into the queue that we can kind of get to. It's going to be fun watching Mitch in the offense this season. I'm all here for like a jet sweep to Mitch Rossi. I know it probably won't be the fastest jet sweep, but let's have a little fun. And the thing is I think that Ohio State will certainly have games this year where they can open some things up later in the game. And that doesn't mean that that's going to necessarily be with the ones, because it's going to be very important to get Devin Brown, to get Kyle McCord meaningful reps this year, because we all know that this is going to be the end of CJ Stroud's Ohio State career after this season. Plain and simple. So you got to get guys reps. This is going to be the last year for JSN. You got to keep moving through. But I would like to see Mitch Rossi. He's earned it. He's earned it. He's moved up from non-scholarship to scholarship. So give him an opportunity. I want to really get to this one because here's one of the first things that I prepared for. About going to Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse, and am I disappointed that Henderson didn't invite me? Yes, I've eaten at Jeff Ruby, and it's fantastic. Of course, I'm disappointed if I can't get a all paid for meal at Jeff Ruby. I've known Trevion since he was a recruit. Wouldn't say that we're guys or anything like that. It would have been fantastic though to be able to be there to witness all of it. But it's a team bonding experience between he and the offensive line. So I thought it was important. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, there was a video, which I will play here in a second, of a deal that Trevion Henderson had with his NIL money, of where he took his offensive line to Jeff Ruby Steakhouse here in Columbus, picks up dinner. In addition to the meal, he gives his offensive linemen, they get robes from Canvas Stitch, they get a wellness package from Paloma, custom phone chargers from Chargy. I don't know, Chargies. I'm not exactly sure on the pronunciation of it, but let's play the video. You can see this. This was on social media. This was something that Trevion put out with NIL management. And, give me your thoughts.
I want to give a huge thanks to Jeff Ruby's, Paloma, Chargies, and Canvas Stitch for helping me put this together. I'm excited for this upcoming season, and I'll see you on the field. Appreciate it.
So there you go. Notice how Trevion Henderson, the guy paying the bill, he was sitting in the throne, which is the way it should be. It's good to be the king, to take a line from a Mel Brooks movie. It is indeed good to be the king. It is good to be the guy who can be paying the bills there. And those offensive linemen certainly pay the bills for opening up lanes for guys like Trevion Henderson. So, that's one of the success stories of NIL. I mean, there are a lot of great parts of it. And I know that there's a huge debate. There are the people who are convinced that it's ruining sports, it's bad, blah, 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 blah. I like seeing the opportunities where maybe these headline players are able to share with players who might not get as much notice. I mean, I think that some of the biggest things is when you see players who are able to provide for their families. There's been a lot of sacrifice. I mean, a lot of players don't necessarily come up through great means in terms of finances, so that's all well and good. But I think that being able to share with your teammates, because I think one of the biggest concerns I had, and I had plenty of them, is, okay, you're going to have a roster of 85 scholarship players, and you're going to have 9 guys that are going to be making real money in the NIL, and, is that going to create some divisiveness in the locker room or not? And when you see stuff like this, I mean, because this is not uncommon for the NFL. Granted, in the NFL, the money is bigger and the gifts are bigger. So, guys aren't getting Rolexes, guys aren't getting jet skis or whatever. But, sign me up for a steak dinner at Jeff Ruby, wellness package. I mean, Lord knows these guys need them. I mean, just the physical demand on their bodies, the robes to relax in, all of that is great. So, let's get to a couple of things here. I mean, look at the size of those steaks. I mean, now I basically want steak for dinner tonight, and I have not done any pre-planning of whatsoever, so probably going to have wings for dinner tonight. But yeah, I mean, it is awesome, Devin. I agree. We may run through this again later in the show if there's, if I get asked about it again, see the video. Just for those of you who were not able to see it on social media here in the first place. Jay Moore, strange to see it, but glad to see them enjoying their success. I mean, it's great. I mean, it's a business in terms of schools make just a bajillion dollars on this. It's great to see the players be able to get some of it. And one of the great things about Trevion is Trevion is so well grounded in terms of the financial aspects of this. Dude's investing his money. I mean, sure, I know he's got a car deal of some sort, so he's going to have some flash, but he is somebody who we're probably going to see him as one of the dudes on Shark Tank here at some point, because I'm not saying that he's necessarily I don't know his investment portfolio, so I can't say, oh, while we're going through this in terms of the economy, he's earning at a 34% return. I don't know what's going on there, but the fact that he is looking big picture is great, especially at a position like running back, because running backs are undervalued in today's draft, and the average running back career in the NFL is not very long. So you better make the most out of that money. And, seeing Trevion do that, I think that is I think it's fantastic. I think it is a lesson that he needs to share with younger players. It's something that needs to go on. Now, everybody's going to do what everybody's going to do. And we haven't even necessarily got into the issues of tax liability, but I'm going to leave that for somebody else's podcast. I don't understand all of that well myself. But the fact that he's taking care of his money is great, but then splash a little bit where you need to take care of your offensive linemen. So, we'll kind of get through a couple more. I agree with Devin there. It's just me, Tim. He's not eligible for the NFL yet, as somebody else jumped in. He has the one more year left. I mean, yeah, I was going to say it's your third year. It's after 3 years. So, I mean, the years all run together. So no, he's got a couple years. So, we'll kind of see what's going on. CJ, I promise I'm going to get to your question. I'm putting it in the queue. I'm not answering questions exactly as they come in. I want to be able to. I'm trying to wait until we get to some of our high water marks in terms of numbers to get to certain ones. So anybody who's asked a question doesn't see me punching it through, I'm not ignoring you. I'm putting them in the queue. I'll get back to them in the queue. I'll do my best with all of that. I see you. I see you. We'll get to it. I promise that. Devin, college athletes are finally being treated how they deserve to be. So there you go. Something else that I want to kind of talk about that I didn't have on my notes is it was learned through some Freedom of Information Act releases that the new video game, the new EA college football video game, should be out in, I think it was July of 2023, so 12 months from now, give or take. Who's excited about that? I'm going to be excited certainly about the game itself. I'm really hoping that it is a from the ground up build. It's not a port of Madden, that they're not taking the Madden game engine and just putting college rosters on it in college stadiums. I was one of those gamers that certainly had my preference. I mean, I think a lot of people had their preference. I'm not saying everybody preferred the college game over the NFL game. I just think it's a matter of what you preferred. I mean, how many of you guys out there are going to be getting the new game? How many of you have the current generation systems? Are people able to get PS5s and Xbox One? I don't even know what the Xbox S and Xbox X, I think is what it is. Who has those at this point? I will admit I have the systems. Oh, who the heck gave me a thumbs down here? I don't like that. But all right, who's got the game systems here? I've got them. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I played Madden 22. I didn't play a lot of it, but I'm certainly looking forward to the chance to play in the college game. Where goes one's not a gamer, I'm assuming. Games have gotten a lot more complicated. They redid some games that I played growing up. They've done some remakes. They made them like really complicated. So I don't understand the complicated games. I don't understand the easy games. I don't know what the heck Fortnite is. I just don't, or Minecraft. I mean, those, I'm 50 years old. I kind of missed out on those games. I think I understand Minecraft a little bit more than I do Fortnite. I've never tried either of them. I mean, I certainly have seen them out there, but I don't know what's going on with that. Devin has the Series X, but I don't get into sports games because they change them every year and they cost still around $60 to $70 a pop. Absolutely. I had baseball from last year. I don't even know what it's called. I had the baseball game, and the new one came out, and I just I'm not that interested to get another one. I can just play last year's game. I don't need the realism of the rosters being updated every day in terms of those types of games. College football is going to be different. I make a living covering college football. There's something to it. I will say this. I knew roster numbers so much better in the era of the games because you had to go in and manually enter them unless you paid for the rosters down the line for somebody else doing the work. It was not, it wasn't done by EA. It wasn't done by Sony or Microsoft. You had to sit there and get a memory card and put all of that on there. Yeah, MLB The Show. Thanks on that one. I couldn't remember what it was called. But, you're sitting there, you're putting it in, and you're going to know the number of the freshman offensive lineman. I couldn't tell you right now what number some of these guys are going to wear because I just, you don't go through it, and we don't see practice on a daily basis. So if you don't see practice on a daily basis, it's not necessarily getting through your thick skull that, oh, okay, well, he's wearing this number and he's wearing that number. And I think we're seeing more number changes now than maybe we did 15 years ago. I mean, not significantly, but there are times that I sit there and I'm like, well, I know that who was wearing that number is gone. Who is that now? Especially if they're of similar body type, then you really get confused. So I'm going to have to sit down and do that. But, today is kind of a holiday as I've seen some people posting pictures of getting their Phil Steele magazine. That's going to be a big deal. But let me get through some of my questions here. somebody stopping at their Wii. I had a Wii. That was a lot of fun. I still have it somewhere, but it was something that I played 3 or 4 games. I had like Paper Mario. I had certainly had the sports games, but it was a little cliche at times. Tecmo Super Bowl was one of my favorite. I mean, I love Tecmo Bowl. I love playing all of that. There was a game that came out prior. No, it was after that. I'm trying to remember where I was living. It was a game on the Nintendo. I think it was the old 8-bit Nintendo, where you could have 4 players play. So you could have 2 on each team. And that created a lot of fights back in the old fraternity house. The GameCube, there's a system that I haven't heard of for a real long time. So, that's 05. I'm trying to think of where was I in 05? I was living in Tennessee at the time. I'd moved from Columbus in 99 to Texas. I moved to Tennessee in 04. So I was still in Tennessee. I was getting ready to move back to Ohio in 06. Devin, and now they've even blocked roster updating, so you have to buy the updated year to year. I know if there's a buck to be made, they're going to find it. So there you go. We're starting to get some more people on here. It's been a long time since I've done a show, so I knew that the number of people on board was going to be hit or miss, and that's fine. I appreciate everybody who's part of the show right now. I'm going to start doing lives a little bit more regularly here. I'm even considering maybe doing a second show where I don't talk Ohio State. I just talk things more in general. Look for me to announce something on that here soon. Just an additional show that I'm looking at doing. But I promise a lot of things. We'll see if I get around to doing that. But I need to be better about it. I mean, we're basically in July. The season's going to be here soon. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of reason to find a distraction to kind of get away from the real world. So we're going to try and do some of that here. Willie, I've never played a video game. My life is more than playing games. I like to watch live sports and highlights of past years of all sports. I recently watched the 64 Browns season and champions game. I wasn't even around in 64 for that. I certainly was part of a generation that came up with video games. We had, growing up, we had the original Pong, which was like kind of the first standalone system. I mean, I've watched some history of video game shows on Netflix because I'm kind of a nerd like that. There was like Magnavox had like some system that we didn't have. That was one of the few ones we didn't have growing up, where you used to have to like put like overlays on your TV screen, which just really seems foolish. But we had the Pong, we had a 2600. We didn't have an Intellivision, which killed me. We would go to the big box stores back in the day, Federated, which was one of them, and I would play baseball on the Intellivision. I'd be so jealous. Of people that had that system, and none of my friends had an Intellivision, so it really was kind of like it was a treat to be able to go there and play it. And then, of course, the employees would come over and be like, "Hey, kid, you got to get off this. You've been on it for like an hour. Other people want to do it." And I'd be like, I just let me finish my game. But I remember getting the 8-bit Nintendo. I remember getting my Sega Genesis. I had a Dreamcast. Never really got into the Dreamcast. Shocking how that one didn't work. Yes, old school. Tecmo Bowl is still fantastic. Asteroids, yes, absolutely. I remember when I finally was allowed to ride my bike out of the neighborhood and go to the little ice cream shop across what was considered a busy road. It was, in retrospect, it wasn't that busy, but it was busy at the time, and that was a big deal for me. And going and playing Asteroids and playing Space Invaders, and then later playing Pac-Man, that was a lot there. But no, I'm not going to give someone else a chance. I got there fair and square, and get your own, because my parents weren't going to get me one. Okay. We're going to shift gears. I mean, this is not the video game show. This isn't the show I'm talking about doing. I think this would be a perfect topic for the other show. Let's kind of get back a little bit more Ohio State. So we'll get to that. Who are the key recruits coming in this weekend? Which ones do we have a good chance of getting? Well, funny you should mention. I didn't create boards because I just didn't want to get to that. But here are some of the names. And again, some of these guys are already in town. Most of them should be getting into town, but we're not provided names by the university. So a lot of this is just research that we do, kids self-reporting on social, but you don't know if a kid's going to get into town until the kid gets into town. Hell, Noah Rogers was supposed to take an official, and that didn't happen. Granted, Ohio State still ended up getting a verbal commitment from him, but the names that we have accumulated based on our staff, based on a lot of hard work by Alex Gleitman, contributions by everybody else, running back Justice Haynes, tight end Jelani Thurman, offensive lineman Olaus Alanen, who I do know is in town, defensive lineman Jason Moore, defensive lineman Darren Reed, defensive lineman Desmond Umeo Zulu. I want to make sure I got that one right. Defensive lineman John Walker. I know John Walker's in town. Defensive lineman Damon Wilson. Linebacker Tackett Curtis. Linebacker Raul Aguirre, also known as Popo. Linebacker Troy Bowles. Cornerback Kayan Lee. Safety Caleb Downs. There are going to be some commits that are going to be in as well. Who do they have a good shot at? Ask me after we get out of the weekend. There's certain guys that I feel like they've had a good shot with. I feel really good about linebacker Tackett Curtis. Tackett Curtis, kid out of Louisiana, which is kind of south of Shreveport, over on the Texas side of the state. I think they have a really good shot there. Ohio State has prioritized him, and I think he's feeling the love. He was somebody being recruited by Jim Knowles to Oklahoma State. So that just kind of carries over. And we know recruiting is a relationship business. So if you have that relationship, that's a good start. Talking for an hour and a half. I have to have a Gatorade or I'm not going to make it. Running back Justice Haynes feels like that one might be a bit of a long shot. They already have Mark Baxter in the class. Ohio State certainly would like to take 2 running backs in this class. I just don't know if it's going to be Haynes. I mean, there's some other options of guys, and I don't want to use the dreaded term of Plan B, but Ohio State certainly kind of focused on a couple of guys, and before we start asking about Richard Young, that one just kind of didn't happen, and it just happens at this point. I think that people don't realize what a talent they've got in and why did I say Mark Baxter? I mean, Mark Baxter's a different back. I'm thinking of Mark Fletcher. Mark Fletcher. Apologies. Too many names. If I could show you my screen, I've got 6 different Word documents open with all of my notes. Mark Fletcher, I mean, we had a chance to see him on Southern Swing. Fantastic player. Really good kid. Miami is not going to go down without a fight, but he's committed to Ohio State, seems to be very happy in his commitment. It might scare some kids off, but to Justice Haynes' credit, he's still going through the visits. He could have easily said, I'm good. He's coming up here, so we'll see. Yeah, I know, Tim. I know, I screwed that one up. Point against me there. I know that they're looking to add another tight end to the class. I don't know a lot about Thurman at this point. Every year we're like, well, this is going to be the year they're going to take 2 tight ends, and they end up with 1. They have Ty Lockwood. Saw Ty Lockwood at the Ohio State camp. Very impressed. Good-looking kid. I think they're just fine with 1. At some point, you just have to sit there and say, all right, you want to sit there? I mean, do you want to bring in 8 defensive backs? You're going to bring in 4 safeties and 4 corners? Numbers have got to give somewhere. Even with the opportunity to bring in 26, 27, 28 kids, you still have to stay under that 85 cap. And we know that with the portal and everything else, there's a lot of movement that can be done in terms of your rosters. So, you can't freak out at this point. And it's not a point of where it's like, well, we think we're only going to be able to take 17, so we're only going to take 17. You worry about that when you have to worry about that. Right before I got on board here, the offensive lineman from Finland, Olaus Alanen, when he came to visit Ohio State previously, the general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets is a Finnish national, and Olaus stayed with him, and there certainly was a lot of good hometown feelings with all of that. So and the GM for the Blue Jackets just kind of tweeted about him minutes before I got on here. So I expect to see something worked out there again of where, their paths legally may cross in terms of however that works. And, for a player with roots, out of the country like that, it doesn't hurt to have somebody, especially somebody like the general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, the Blue Jackets have got to, raise their play, because we know that any front office position in sports is not permanent. So, go CBJ. Jason Moore, Darren Reed on the defensive line. Those are guys that I certainly think Ohio State's got a very good shot at. John Walker as well. We met John Walker when we went to Osceola during the Southern Swing. Not a huge social media talker. He's not going to sit there and go out there and try and get a lot of interaction. That's just not his. That's just not in his DNA. I'm gonna let my actions speak for myself on the field. Popo Aguirre, he's an interesting cat. I think that one might be a tough pull, but I think we're going to see a lot of what Ohio State's defensive coaching recruiting is going to look like at this point. You don't bring in Jim Knowles necessarily to be your Brian Hartline. More on Brian Hartline in a minute. That's he is the head coach of your defense, and you have guys who are around him who are dynamic recruiters. I mean, Larry Johnson, he can recruit. I think we've already seen that Perry Eliano can recruit. Tim Walton is really making an impact out there. So there certainly are guys on the defensive side that are gonna step up and be able to do some work there. Troy Bowles is somebody as well that I think that there's a lot of questions about. Obviously, his father stepped into the role of head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I made the point on the message board over on Buckeye Scoop of saying, look, I'm not calling Troy Bowles to any school at this point, but real recognizes real. And if you're an NFL head coach, you've been around this game enough, and you've heard the BS and you've heard the real, and real recognizes real. So I like Ohio State's chances in terms of the messaging that it sends. Now, does Troy feel the love? Does that all come together? That remains to be seen. I can't say for sure on that, but I think there are a lot of people who kind of view Troy's recruitment and like, well, he's a kid out of Tampa. Yes, Ohio State's able to pull some kids out of Florida, but where does it end? Well, I think they can get them. Does that mean they get them? I don't know. Kayan Lee, who is the cornerback out of Cedar Grove High School, same high school that Antoine Jackson came out of. I like their chances there too. He's gone on some visits. I'm under the impression that Ohio State has a very good shot there. But, I want to go to a certain name that everybody asks me about, and I know that there are other names. I'm going to get to Jonel Aguero in a minute. I'm going to get to some of these other names, Jaden Bonsu, but Caleb Downs. And Caleb Downs is probably one of the players that I'm most interested in seeing where he ends up. He is a 5-star player. He is a top 10 national type of player in my book. The problem is that I'll probably say that about 25 kids, and you can't have 25 kids in the top 10, but I think Caleb Downs absolutely needs to be a top 10 type of player. Again, another player we had the chance to see on our Southern Swing. Great coverage with Mark Gibler when we went and did 2 weeks on the road, mostly through the states of Georgia and Florida with a quick stop in North Carolina. This is going to be pivotal for Ohio State. Where goes one with a spoiler alert saying that he's in? Hear me out here. I think Ohio State has a fantastic shot. I think Georgia shot its shot and it didn't land. I mean, he's from the state of Georgia. It didn't land there for whatever it's worth. Somebody called me. I don't know who it is. Well, they'll have to wait till the show's over. So that's an Ohio State-Alabama deal. Now, he goes and visits Alabama, has all of the great things in the world to say out of Alabama. What are you supposed to expect? That's fresh on the mind at that point. I just visited Alabama. I'm really juiced about Alabama. Ohio State hasn't had its opportunity to shoot its shot. Now it does. He's going to be on campus. This visit's going to happen. This isn't one of those. It's like, well, he's saying the right things. He's going to be here. Ohio State and Alabama are kind of neck and neck. And I don't think that Alabama was able to do enough to shut the door on Ohio State. And I think Ohio State will be able to do enough here. Now, does that mean that Caleb Downs is going to walk away from this and say, well, I'm done. I'm not going to need to think about this anymore? Probably not. But I like where Ohio State stands in this one. And, of course, remember, he has a brother who's at, he has a brother who's at North Carolina. So, we'll have to see what's kind of going on there. But I like Ohio State's chance. Somebody just asked me via text message. A couple people have my number. I don't know off the top of my head if he has an announcement date in mind. So I would have to check into that. Unfortunately, as I produce my own show, I can't really get on the computer and look at that now. We'll figure it out. Maybe I can get away with showing the Trevion Henderson video again. That'll give me a minute, but we'll see. So, that's what's kind of going on with the weekend visitors. Now, Ohio State's sitting at, 13 players right now? And that number went up based on a really, really, really good week for recruiting for Ohio State. And again, let me jump back into the queue. I know I'm being asked a lot of questions about certain players. We're going to get back to them. I promise you. But, let me kind of run through this order because I tried to piece this together to make a little bit of sense. And while we're talking offense, or we're talking recruiting, let's go to offense. Ohio State picks up 3 receiver commitments, 14 stars right there. 5-star Carnell Tate, 5-star Brandon Ennis, 4-star Noah Rogers. Noah Rogers probably should be a 5-star, but as I worked at one of the major evaluation services, and part of their makeup was they don't assign all their 5 stars early. At first it might be like 8, and then it might get to 20, and then by the time that you get to the finalists, there might be 32 to 35. I certainly think that Noah Rogers, with a good year there at Rollsville High School out in suburban Raleigh-Durham area, I think he's somebody who could be there. But just how scary is Ohio State's recruiting? I don't have the ranks in terms of, because the thing is that Rivals is going to have one view, 24/7 is going to have one view, On3 is going to have one view of, this is the number 1 receiver in the nation. This is number 2 receiver in this nation. But just know that Tate and Ennis are right there at the top. Then you've got Noah Rogers and Bryson Rogers. Are we sleeping on Bryson Rogers? Bryson Rogers made, committed early to Ohio State and, might not be getting the mention, and he could be as good as any of them. But then again, I'm hearing people say that about Noah as well. So, they have this 4-man class, and I get it. Nothing's signed. So you don't have letters of intent in, but I don't think any of these guys are going to waver, much to the chagrin of the Miamis of the world on the South Florida guys, much to the chagrin of NC State on Noah Rogers. They certainly felt that they had home court advantage, but that doesn't always work. And, Ohio State now has this 4-man class. Can you think of a position group that has been recruited in recent memory by Ohio State that rivals this 4-man class? And you have to talk about certain positions. You have to talk about certain positions where you've got multiple guys. It's not fair to sit there and look at quarterbacks. I mean, sometimes you might take 2 quarterbacks and be like, oh, wow, that's, fantastic. But a lot of times, even at that, you go and get the 5-star Justin Swick, and then you get to throw in Troy Smith. And then lo and behold, it proves to be flip-flopped. Troy Smith ended up being the guy that went on to have the football career, and, and it just didn't necessarily happen for Justin Swick. I mean, it just, it happens at times. But, I've certainly seen some great defensive line classes. I mean, certainly we've seen under Brian Hartline, we've seen some really solid wide receiver classes. But is this the top one? Can this be replicated? I mean, we could look to 24. We could look at Jeremiah Smith. We could look at Tyseer Denmark. I mean, those are 2 guys right there that Ohio State has a very good shot at both of them, like an extremely, very, very good shot at both of them. But, where do you fill in 3 and 4? And it's a little early to be going through 24 and saying, well, these are definitely the top guys. I'm not going to back off of Jeremiah Smith. J.J. Smith is a top dude, period. I had the chance to see Tyseer Denmark at the 7-on-7 camp at Ohio State. He looks the part too. Now, 7-on-7 is like AAU basketball, and you go, well, I saw this guy go nuts for all these points and nobody defended him. Well, that's because that's AAU basketball. Nobody defends. So, I don't get too excited about what I see in seeing 7-on-7 and say, that is 100% exactly what we're going to see in college football. Now, that doesn't mean I'm poo-pooing 7-on-7 football. I think 7-on-7 is great. I enjoy watching it. It's a fun event, and if you ever get the opportunity to go to a bigger picture 7-on-7 event, absolutely go. South Florida Express is, I've never had the chance to go and watch a South Florida Express event live. It's on my list of things professionally that I want to do. Just the amount of talent that they roll out there. But just in the same state, Team Tampa is really good too. I mean, and then you're going to have other places that are going to be fantastic as well. So Ohio needs to get on board with this. I mean, now you can have high school teams doing it, but that's just not the same as these tryout teams that have large reach. I mean, when you sit there and you look at South Florida Express going in all the way up into Cocoa and getting Cedric Hawkins, there's something different there. I mean, it's not one school putting it out there. And unfortunately for the Ohio State 7-on-7 event, it was just high school teams. So we were not able to get these super teams. So let me get to a couple of questions or comments about Noah Brown. Saw the highlights of Noah Rogers. He looks like the best receiver coming. He looked like a beast, polished route runner, different speed, gears. He is really good. I mean, we went down to Rolesville, had a chance to talk to him. Didn't get to see a practice. It wasn't in the cards for how the schedule was set up. Hoping to do that soon. I know that during the football season, Mark Givler gets out to a lot more schools because I'm charged with covering the team. So I only get really one open weekend to leave the state. And even with that, I just I'm tired. I really like to sit home and watch football. But, with Ohio State's national recruiting reach, you kind of have to do that sometimes. Tackett shows up with the Woody wearing a tee. What tee would he be wearing? I haven't since I got on here. I haven't been on social, so I don't know kind of what's going on in the world right now. That might be for the best that I don't know what's going on in the world right now. So we'll move on with that. So it's an interesting situation of when the jokes were coming up. All right, let me see this. Wearing a T-shirt stating Ohio State OSU Jam with pictures of Carpenter and Hawk on it. Well, I really want to try and get down and go see Tackett Curtis at home because he lives a couple hours away from my in-laws. And I'm sure my wife would love a trip to be able to go home and see her family. And I can make the 2-hour drive to go see him there. I just think that any opportunity I have to get there to go see him, he might be a committed prospect by then. I kind of missed my window of opportunity here in the past couple months. I think this one could end pretty soon. I really do. And that kind of gets back to the question of somebody asking about the next 5-star commit. Tackett is not a 5-star according to the ranking services, but I think he's somebody that I could see moving pretty soon. The next commit that I see, how about Jermaine Matthews? He has a July 1st announcement. I think that's, I think that might be the next one. Now, somebody could, today's only the 24th, so we have a week. A lot could happen between now and then. Somebody could come off of their visit and say, I've seen what I need to see and I'm done. But I think Jermaine Matthews is somebody who really could be the next guy, or at least he's certainly on commit watch. Now that he's made his decisions, people get a little worried. Oh, well, he just picked up an Alabama offer. He has an LSU offer. He has an Oklahoma offer. This is Ohio State and Cincinnati. And there are people in his life that want him at Ohio State. There are people in his life that want him at Cincinnati. Ultimately, it's his decision. If the people in his life that want him at Cincinnati aren't able to prevail, he's going to be at Ohio State. And that's how that one's going to go. And, we'll see. Generally, it's got to be the kid's decision. And if that's where the kid wants to go, he was out there screaming, asking, demanding that offer. He got that Ohio State offer. That's where that one's going to go. I got a couple things I want to get back to, but I've seen the question there about Raiola reclassifying in 2023, and I'm going to tell you exactly why that doesn't need to happen. Now, I get it. Get him here. They don't have a 23 quarterback. How about getting a year between him and McCord / Brown and separate it? Whether or not, they're able to get an Austin Novosad, whether they're able to get Brock Glenn, whoever in the 23 slot, I want to have a little bit more separation for Raiola to be able to be the guy, especially if he's as good as we all believe he is. I saw him at camp, throwing. I mean, certainly was great seeing him throw, but it wasn't football. I mean, it was a camp setting. They were going through drill work. I mean, there was some stuff where it was routes on air. There was some stuff where they did have a DB. They had things going on like that, but it wasn't football. Let's not forget Raiola is a young guy. He still needs development too. I mean, he may be the number one player in that class, certainly the number one quarterback in that class. I mean, a lot of time for that all to shake out. I don't think there's any reason to speed it up. Plus, too, if you're a superstitious fella, the last quarterback who reclassified, how did that one work out? So I don't know if I would want, each kid is his own kid. And it doesn't necessarily mean that just because this happened with this kid, same thing's going to happen there. No, everything's individual. Everybody's got their own swerve. But with that being said, I don't know if I want any type of situation where that goes on. Plus, again, you put Raiola up against, you put him right on the heels of Devin Brown, and then, you're going to sit there and accelerate one or the other leaving, in my opinion. And I think Devin Brown's pretty darn good. So I keep that buffer. I keep that separation. You have another year of Dylan Raiola out there recruiting. He is really kind of becoming the mouthpiece of the Ohio State student recruiting movement. He's become CJ Hicks. So, I think he's fine where he is. Now, Willie, I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with the sentiment, but I have thought about it because I did answer this question yesterday on the message board. I have seen this on social, so I have given it a little thought. So there you go. Keon Keeley, talented player, committed to Notre Dame. Can Ohio State flip him? Potentially. Is it likely? I don't know. I don't know about say likely. Now, Keon Keeley shows up on campus and Ohio State's able to shoot a shot. Game on. But, I don't know. We'll see. I think that Ohio State certainly has, a lot to offer there, but so does Notre Dame. So we'll kind of go from there. But speaking of Notre Dame, what are your thoughts about head coach and former Buckeye Marcus Freeman and all of his comments? Is he being misquoted? Is he misspeaking? Are these unforced errors? Are we making much ado about nothing? He certainly seems to have taken some shots, if you believe what you read, at Ohio State in terms of the education, the process. You can extol the virtues and the values of the Notre Dame academic rigors without taking a shot at your alma mater or at any school. But is it a case of where things are being misconstrued? I mean, there was the first interview where, some comments came out that just didn't necessarily sit right. And, you don't know what's going on there. But does a second time make this kind of a pattern? Should he just stop doing interviews at this point? He might. I mean, he contractually has to do some, but he might. I mean, why would you poke the bear of your alma mater, the team that you're playing week one, and a team that you're going to recruit against every single year? It makes no sense to me. Now, I haven't gone back and listened to the audio from his interview with Dennis Dodd, which was the second instance of things going on. I live and let live. I'm not. I've got other stuff to worry about in my life. I can't get too caught up in all of that. But I mean, it certainly did spark a firestorm with all that. I did talk to somebody. I did talk to somebody affiliated with Ohio State off the record. Not in a position to speak on this, so I'm not going to say who or anything like that. But they told me point blank, not concerned with any of that. We see him on the field September 3rd. Game's going to be played. They know Marcus. They've known him prior. I mean, they like Marcus. They're going to sit there. I mean, even with all that, they're not going to get wrapped up on this. If Ohio State needs some loose comment by Notre Dame's head coach to get jazzed for this game, Ohio State's in trouble. You don't need the juice. Now, I'm injected in my veins in terms of having stuff to talk about. I may do 3 more shows about it at some point. I don't know. I mean, it's fun to talk about. I mean, it's certainly, it's an interesting thing to talk about. Got James Laurinaitis on that staff. I haven't heard James Laurinaitis say anything. I mean, granted, he's in a much less visible position where he's at in his first coaching position within a football structure than the head coach is. I don't generally hear that kind of stuff. Now, is this Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher? No. Nobody's calling anybody out by name at this point. None of that has gone on. But just the sheer fact that he maybe did, maybe didn't take shots at his alma mater. About, well, we have to show up for class. You can't go online and so on and so forth. Guess what? After 2020, online classes are just part of everything. We got work from home. We've got, all of that stuff going on. I went to Ohio State. I showed up to class and wasn't there. I mean, plenty of times. And granted, I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't there on scholarship. I didn't have the expectations of anybody outside of maybe my parents on me. But just because you show up to class doesn't necessarily mean anything. You go to U.S. News and World Report, and Notre Dame has got a fantastic ranking in terms of collegiate institutions. I'm not going to take that away. I'm not even going to deny that in at least the last one that I found, Notre Dame was rated higher than Ohio State. I'm not going to take away the fact that Notre Dame really doesn't have a bunch of exemptions to where athletes are able to get in under lowered admission standards than the general student. You still have a situation of where you have to get through the eligibility center, formerly known as the clearinghouse. You have to have the core GPA. You have to have the test score. And I mean, the test score even seems to be a weird situation now where it wasn't involved during things that were going on with COVID and everything else. But you have to have the GPA and the core classes. And I happen to have a friend who works in the eligibility center. And, we've talked about some of these things. I haven't talked to him in a while. I owe him a phone call, actually, just to keep up with him. But then you have schools that certainly have higher things than just the NC2A minimums. Just because you get through the clearinghouse doesn't mean you get into Ohio State or to Notre Dame or to Penn State or to SC or to Vandy or wherever. But then, there's this belief that everybody, that Ohio State is just, it's just minimums according to the eligibility center. And that's not true. Darrell Johnson, later Darrell Johnson Koulianos, wanted to go to Ohio State and they couldn't get him in. He could get into Michigan, though. He could get into Iowa, where he eventually went. But, there was just something in terms of how, there was a caveat in the admission standards and you needed to have so much of physical sciences or whatever, and it just wasn't necessarily congruent. But, let me kind of go to some of your guys' comments here. Willie, Freeman has proved zero as a coach. There's a long list of great assistants who were bad head coaches. He looked like a deer in the headlights, I'm assuming, against Oklahoma State last year. Day over Freeman. There you go. So I don't know if I'm ready to say that there, because you look at a situation, Marcus Freeman inherited a coaching staff, and you can't fix the engines on a plane at 35,000 feet. So that's like saying that Luke Fickell is always going to be the Luke Fickell that was here on the 6-7 Ohio State team in 2011, who had the carryover staff and could only replace himself. Well, we know that not to be true, as Cincinnati has made it to the college football playoff, won the American, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that Marcus Freeman is going to figure it out. He certainly has a new look staff. I think that's all going to help. He certainly has all these months to work with his team and install whatever systems he sees fit. Hopefully for Notre Dame, they don't sit there and just sell out on cover one, because we know what the heck happened with that. I don't know, but I do think that he is going to come into a very tough situation here week 1 of the season going against Ohio State, that has a very good offense and is not turning people over in terms of its offensive staff. I mean, defense is going to be a work in progress, but let's say Notre Dame scores 31 against Ohio State. I don't think Notre Dame's going to score 31 against Ohio State. Is Notre Dame going to hold Ohio State under 40? Under 45? I don't think so. So, the point being, I just don't know that you need I don't think you just need to pop off. I think you just need to stay under the radar, let Ohio State do what Ohio State does, let Notre Dame do what Notre Dame does, and then just kind of show up and play the game. But, I don't want anybody talking S about my alma mater. And if you're a player, you hear what he's saying. I mean, it's I just think it's extremely misguided. So Ryan Day sales pitch, do you really want to get up at 8 a.m. to go to class in January in South Bend? Yeah. I remember my 8 a.m. classes, and I don't know how many of you on the chat went to Ohio State or familiar with the layout of campus. My freshman year, I lived in Dracut Tower, which is on North Campus, and I had a history class at 8 a.m. in Park Hall, which was on Med Campus over by the hospitals. My history 150 or something like that. And I'll tell you, and this was like, I think I took it, Ohio State was still in quarters at the time, so I think I did 150 in winter, and then I did 151 in spring. It was tough. It was tough going to Park Hall every day. I mean, I think it was a 5-day-a-week class. I mean, we're talking about 1990. That was a long time ago. If computers were really an option, if Zoom really was an option, and I could have done that, I absolutely would have done it. And I don't know what I would have gained different from going to class versus, online or whatever. I mean, it's different. If it's a lab, you have to be able to do that. You can't do, a biology class where you have to do like a dissection or something. I don't even know. Do you do dissections in college biology classes? I don't know. You can't do that online. I mean, it's not like a matter of you can just sit there and take an operation game and play along. I mean, it's not the same thing. Then again, you could probably put on those VR headsets and get the same experience now. I can't imagine what college is going to look like in 20 years, but we'll go from there. You'd shortcut through buildings. Yeah. I mean, you have to do that. I mean, it was when I worked at Ohio State later in my collegiate career that I saw a lot of the tunnels around Med Campus. I'm like, these things are fantastic. Why the heck can't I use these normally? A lot of tunneling there. It was a lot of rough walks, and as I went further in my collegiate career, my attendance got a little worse. So, Devin, yes, if you're having a good time, enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and share, or even super chat if you want to. Tom Orr was threatening to get on and ask me a bunch of difficult questions for 3-cent super chats. I think the minimum's a little higher than that, but really, give me that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. Don't miss out on a single show. I promise you, I'm going to do more of these shows. I really am. I enjoy this. I sit around and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And now we're 59 minutes into this show. I still have half a page of things to talk about. I'll probably take this about a half hour. My voice is starting to get a little scratchy, but it's fine. I'm having a good time with all of my friends here on the Big Me Kickoff, and it's just a good time. So we'll just keep going with all that. I want to get back to something else I saw from Yakov. Do I hang out with Tom and Tony when not working? Seem like a great crew. We try to. We certainly do the best we can. It's we're all old and married and everything else, so it's not necessarily like we all live on campus and we're gonna go to a kegger or anything like that. A lot of things that we have to schedule in order to do that. A lot of family responsibilities. I got to spend a lot of time with Tom and Mark during the Ohio State camps. Tony was running point from home, so only got to see him from one. But, we've already been talking about Big Ten Media Days coming up in about a month in Indianapolis and how much we're looking forward to that. We all do really get along when you sit there and you get three of us and Mark, and Alex is out of state, so we don't get to spend a lot of time with Alex, and Bill Green is up in, the Canton-Akron area, so we don't get to hang out with him a ton. And, he's an old man. I say that as a slightly less old man, but he's an old man. He doesn't want to hang out. But, I think one of the things that I really enjoy about our crew is just how much we get along. And I hope that shows in the shows that we do, the amount that we enjoy each other's company, whether or not we're talking about football or video games or tacos or whatever. I've known a lot of these guys for years and years and years. I've known Tony since the 90s. I mean, it's just it's crazy. I've known Tom slightly less. I've known Mark for, I don't know, a dozen years. I've known Bill for a long time. I've known Alex. I've known him as a friend for several years. I knew of him prior. So I hope that answers your question, Yakov. I'm going to get to a couple of your questions. Those are more important than things that I prepared. CJ, I promised you I was going to get back to this. Hopefully you waited for me to get to this. Jonel Aguero. I think Georgia leads there. Sorry to say that. I think Ohio State has done a great job. If he picked Ohio State, I wouldn't be floored. But that one just seems to be trending UGA in my opinion. I just think that they had a little bit of. I just think they were able to resonate a little better with them, and you're not going to be able to land everybody. Ohio State isn't going to be able to land Cormani McClain out of Florida, despite having several of his 7-on-7 teammates committed to the class. You just can't get them all. But would I be shocked? Would I consider it one of the greatest recruiting upsets of all time if Ohio State landed him? No. But right now, I kind of see Georgia being the team to beat there. And let's not forget, Georgia, they're pretty good at football too, especially on defense. So this isn't a case of, Georgia, why the hell is this kid looking at Georgia? Well, we saw what Georgia's defense was able to do last year, and they're a hot commodity. So there you go. Where goes one? How will OSU deal with limitations being lifted on for coaching staff? I'm assuming you're talking about just the number of coaches that you're able to have as coaches as opposed to GAs and QCs and everything else. Well, I think there's a reason why you see Keenan Bailey sticking around. I think it's pretty safe to say that he's going to get elevated to a full position. Keenan Bailey, who, we can all talk about what Brian Hartline has done in terms of recruiting. Keenan Bailey needs to be in that same sentence. He's done a fantastic job. Dynamic young coach. Great guy. I enjoy the opportunities I have to just say hey to him around the Woody Hayes facility. Bumped into him, a few times. Good dude. But Ohio State is not going to get beat out there. Now, we all like to laugh and joke about how Alabama is 3 steps ahead of everybody. I mean, Alabama staff could be like 5,000. I mean, honestly, by the time it's all said and done. Ohio State came out, it's like, we're not in the market to have $1 million assistant coach, and that lasted about 2 years before Ohio State had $1 million assistant coaches, and now has nearly a $2 million assistant coach with Jim Knowles. I don't think Ohio State's going to get caught flat-footed here. I think when Ryan Day renegotiated, he made sure that the message was loud and clear that this is coming. Gene Smith, Ohio State's director of athletics, We need to make sure that we have a plan here. I don't know if Ohio State's going to have the largest coaching staff in the nation, but I think Ohio State certainly is going to make whatever investment is necessary because it's an arms race. And that arms race is going to see Ohio State be very proactive on that. It's going to see, we're going to hear about some significant upgrades to the Woody Hayes facility here at some point, I believe. I think Ohio State's going to do whatever it takes because, let's face it, money's good right now in college football if you're in the Big Ten. The Big Ten's about ready to announce pretty much $1 billion rights deal in terms of its television partners, and that's going to mean a lot of money for these schools. And while that's not necessarily going to be, that's not like the major source of where Ohio State's football money comes in, it's a nice place to have it. Now, here's a question I throw to you, and it's something we'll think about, and maybe we'll talk about it on the next show. Is Ohio State having to compete against itself in a roundabout way here now in the day of NIL? Are people who would normally donate money to the program, are they donating money to the collective, to the athlete through the legal means? And is there a finite amount of dollars that are going to be given year to year? And are they going to have to split those dollars with the athletes? And does that mean less money coming into the program? I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about because, I'm not even going to get into the economics of, where, things being expensive or anything else. That's hashtag stick to sports. But, are you going to sit there and say, if you have 100 pieces of pie and the university's used to getting 100 pieces of pie, and now the university is going to get 70 pieces of pie, what does that mean for the economics? An interesting thing to think about. Let me get back to our current comments to see if anybody has commented on that. I'm gonna put a couple more of these things in here. Let's get back to some more questions. Song Lee, thanks for doing this. Do you think we get Downs, Mateo, and Bowles? I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have any of those things now. I used to have the thing over on Rivals. When I left, I no longer have access to that anymore. If I were to give a thumbs up, thumbs down, I'm going to say yes on Downs. I'm going to say yes on Mateo. I'm not sure on Bowles. Yes. But I don't want to sit there and be like, hey, I'm King Homer here, and I'm just going to say yes to everybody. And then when they don't get everybody, oh, Noon, Jesus, you just couldn't even give us the right answer. So I'm a little hesitant to say 3 for 3. I feel pretty good on Downs. I feel maybe slightly less as good, but still pretty good on Mateo. And I'm cautiously optimistic on Bowles. So that's my feeling there. Wayne Taylor, good to see me on this side of the camera. Any word on the OLDL recruits? I'll be interested. I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, I think that they're going to have to keep some people warm. Jordan Hall, the offensive lineman out of Kip Academy, camped several times at Ohio State, did not get the offer to my knowledge. I think he's going to be a wait till November and see where things stand, but you have to kind of prepare there. I mean, if they get Olaus Alanen, I think that's a huge get for them right there. I mean, there's some other big offensive linemen who are on the board as well. They've got to up their offensive line recruiting. And people hear me say that and think that I'm denigrating this kid or that kid. No, I'm not denigrating anybody. I mean, it's somebody's son. That's not how I roll. But I think that Ohio State is not necessarily landing guys on the offensive line at the frequency and at the ranking that it should. So exit Greg Studrara, enter Justin Fry. Let's kind of see what happens there. I think that class of 24, I think we're really going to see kind of the turnaround there because it's sometimes a 2-year cycle. And Justin Fry wasn't necessarily recruiting all the same dudes at UCLA that Ohio State's recruiting. But I'm not giving them a pass either. I'm not saying, well, this year's a wash. They get what they get, and we go from there. On the defensive side of the ball, I think that they could do really well. I mean, I really felt good about Darren Reed. And then, I know that somebody put a crystal ball in for LSU. I don't know if that's still standing there at that point. So, of course, that had me kind of double back and think about it. I think Ohio State could get, I think they could get John Walker. I think Ohio State could land Jason Moore. I think the issue is that people have been spoiled by the Boses of the world, the Chase Youngs of the world, where's the next generational player? Well, the next generational player has to emerge, and that's put some dudes in, against some very, difficult expectations. Now we could get out of this year, and JT Tuimoloau could be fantastic. He could have just an amazing year. Jack Sawyer could have an amazing year. This could be the year that Zach Harrison, he's not going to have contain responsibilities. He can act much more instinctual out there. I mean, he could go off and have a big year. And then suddenly people are going to be like, I don't think that defensive line recruiting has been as bad as once reported. Because at the end of the day, it's all about results. And if the results come in, well, therefore it's working. So it's one of these things. If we see this, and are we more focused on the stars? Are we more focused on the results? I think at the end of the day, you need to be more focused on the results. But, it'll be interesting. I want to get out of this weekend of visits. I want to talk to Mark. I want to talk to Bill. I want to talk to Alex. I want to talk to a couple of my sources. And then we'll kind of double back and see where things stand. I'm not promising that I'm going to do a mock class. I really hate doing that and going on record with that, because then it's really easy to be like, see, you had it right here. You're wrong. You're stupid. I'm called stupid enough in my life. I don't need to open up any more avenues for that. So we'll see what we do next week. But I got you. I got you, Wayne, on that one. There's another question from CJ about Aguero. We got to that one already. Will Gabe Powers get any quality playing time this year, or is he buried? I mean, who do you bring him in instead of at this point? What position do you have him as? I mean, I think that's a lot of it right now. I mean, if he's a Sam, what do you do there? They're not going to have a Sam on the field against a lot of teams. Does he, do you bring him in as a rush end? How quickly does he take to that? I'm not here to bet against a player like Gabe Powers, but I'm not here to sit there and say that he's going to be somebody who's going to see a lot of positional playing time at this point. It's kind of one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations. If you're a young guy and you get out there, is that a case of you're out there because you are just far and away amazing? Or is that you're out there because we got to put you out there because there's just nobody else getting it done? So, an interesting discussion point there. Let me get back to the current things, see if anybody's talking about any of my stupidity here on there. Devin laughing at some of my stuff. I know I wanted to, and I know sometimes I need to get a little more animated. I can get a little one note. I try to keep that from going on. Jay Moore, common sense says money has limits, but how much more money, TV money, makes up for that? I think the TV money is going to be big, but I mean, it's not like anybody's going to be getting $200 million. I mean, it's not a case of where individual schools are going to be seeing that type of money, but it's going to be real money. And when you sit there and you look at maybe some of the lower teams in terms of the Big Ten, it's going to be like holy shnikes money of where they're going to be able to do some stuff. Now let's remember, Maryland had to kind of take a loan against future earnings. Maryland and Rutgers are coming off, or still might be on their junior status in terms of joining the conference. I don't know how many years they were pledges, so we'll kind of see. But TV money is going to make a lot of stuff happen. But there's a lot, there's a lot of things that are just going to get to be more expensive in terms of bringing in more coaches and staying up in the facilities arms races. And, if you run into issues of where you're not able to get public monies in order just to keep up with your facilities, kind of what happens there. So it's an interesting point, and that's why I just don't know if we're going to see something of where NIL money is going to get to a point of where it kind of cuts into university money just based on what the donations are. But how about this? As I'm just sitting here thinking about it, we may see a new round of giving, and we may see more than 100 pieces of pie, and we may see some people who normally wouldn't donate to the university who are much more apt to donate to the athletes. And that might be the solution there at that point. And a lot of that stuff may be done on much smaller scale numbers, but a ton of nickels adds up to be a lot of dollars at some point. So it's another thing. I think we could go on and on and on about it. I know there are probably a lot of people being like, I just want to talk about football. I don't want to talk about the money. I just want to talk about football. So it's a delicate balance. Let me get back here into some of these other questions. We kind of the next 5-star commit. I mean, I don't know, because you have to really kind of look. You have to look at who the 5-stars are. You have to look at kind of what what their timing is. I mean, how about J.J. Smith in the class of 24? He's a 5-star. He wanted to commit a while back, and he was slowed down by some people around him, which I think is a good decision. You don't necessarily want to be the first school to be committed to on a long recruitment if he's getting pulled in 50 different directions. Jeremiah Smith really likes Ohio State. Ohio State really likes Jeremiah Smith. I absolutely believe Jeremiah Smith will be a member of the Buckeyes. I believe Jeremiah Smith will commit to the Buckeyes, and I believe Jeremiah Smith will sign with the Buckeyes in the class of 2024. Could that happen today or tomorrow? Maybe. Could that happen in 6 months? Could that happen in 12 months? All of that's possible, but we're talking about a real finite number of people when we're talking about 5-stars. So I could sit there and be like, yeah, Ohio State's at 13 kids right now and 23, and let's just say they run it to 28. You have that dispensation to where you can go to 28 this class. That's 15 more kids, but how many of them are 5-stars at this point, especially here in June when 5-star numbers haven't filled out? I do know that Jeremiah Smith's a 5-star off the top of my head, so that's who I'm going to go with. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm kind of cheating here a little bit, not giving you a 23, but it's my show, so I'm going to do what I want to. We kind of talked about Willie's question there, but I want to make sure that I touch upon everything I threw into the queue. We kind of talked about the recruiting weekend. If money was no issue, where in Central Ohio would I most want to live? Well, I live in Pickerington. Those who know me know that, out on the east side, just outside the Outer Belt, for those who are not really familiar with the geography of Columbus. Very few of my friends live out here on the east side. So if money were no issue and I wanted to just hang out with my friends, I would probably move to Dublin or to Powell. That's where a lot of my friends live, or Lewis Center. I like it out here on the east side. I don't like that there's really nothing to do out here in terms of everything in Pickerington's a chain restaurant. We don't have Bridge Park like in Dublin. We don't have the North Market. We don't have a lot of that stuff. If you want to go to O'Charlie's, we got you covered. If you want to go to Roosters, we got you covered. If you want to go to some, some Cameron Mitchell restaurant, you're SOL. You're going to drive. So I couldn't imagine moving right now at this point. And that's just because that just seems like a real pain in the rear end. So then again, if money were no issue, I'd pay for somebody to pack my boxes and do all of that. But interesting question, Yakov. Let me get back to the current things going on. We're going through a couple of things. I want to make sure I hit this. Yeah, Brandon Ennis tweeting at JJ. I tweeted about JJ right after Noah Rogers committed, and I said, well, it sounds to me, because Ohio State's going to take 4 receivers in 24. And that they have 4, so they don't really need to recruit anymore. Rico Flores' visit is off. They're not really looking at him or Jalen Hale. 23 is done. So I immediately tweeted, well, it sounds to me like J.J. Smith is on the clock. Well, I got several retweets and several likes. And a couple of those likes came from In the Woody. So take that for what it's worth right there. I just think that there's a lot of momentum there. I think that with Ohio State kind of cleaning up with the South Florida Express crew and everything else, this might be, he's had a summer to kind of go through some things. Maybe we might have to wait until he takes a visit, for a game this season. But I don't think we're looking at 12 to 16 months from now on Jeremiah Smith. Now I can be proven wrong on that, but I don't think I'm wrong. Scott asking, do we think we get that running back? I assume you're talking about Justice Haynes. I don't know. Put my feet to the fire. I'm going to say no. They've got Mark Fletcher, who's fantastic. They certainly have some other options as a second back if they really want to take a back in this class. There is a tremendous kid in state out of Ironton that I like a lot. They would be fine only with one running back, in my opinion. With that being said, I mean, what do things look like moving on? I mean, I understand you have you have Steel Chambers now playing linebacker. I mean, you have Marcus Crowley medically retiring. You certainly have some issues there. What does Dallin Hayden look like? What does year 2 Evan Pryor look like? There are a lot of things there. I mean, what does Mayan Williams look like this year? But then what does the next season look like? And that's more the concern. I mean, you're not necessarily recruiting just for 1 year in advance. You can't look at it on just a 1 year picture. You've got to be looking big picture, and what does, who cycles in and who cycles out and everything else. Justice Haynes could come up to Ohio State and fall in love. And let's remember, we have seen tremendous two-man classes. Trevion Henderson and Evan Pryor were in the same class, and they never wavered on that. They knew that they were going to be part of a two-man class. There was no situation of trying to convince Ezekiel Elliott that like Dontre Wilson was coming in as an athlete and trying to convince Dontre Wilson that he was coming in as a running back or anything like that. I mean, it was all right in front of them. And while we talk about tremendous recruiters, let's not sleep on Tony Alford. Tony Alford is a tremendous, tremendous recruiter and could sell ketchup popsicles to a woman in white gloves. But, we'll see. I'm tending to say no, but I've been wrong. Yeah, we're just making sure that we were there on that one. I've answered that question. How do I think Jim Knowles' plan is to shut down Notre Dame's tight end? I think that the first thing you've got to do is you have to account for them at all times. Can't tell you the amount of times I've seen opposing tight ends just kind of get lost in the situation one way or the other. I want to see what's happening at Notre Dame's quarterback position. I want to see what Ohio State's quarterback pressure is, at how much they're able to pressure. I mean, it isn't the worst thing in the world if they're having to dump off to the tight end all the time because he's running for his life, because the quarterback's running for his life. Sometimes it's not always a bad thing if that's like their only option, because they can't sit there and you can't get separation in the secondary, and you don't have time to run intermediate and long routes and everything else. If I'm giving up 3-4 yards a pop, now granted, if you give up 4 yards a pop on every play, you can't be stopped. In theory, based on 4-4-4 being a first down. But I'm here for a situation of where they have to sit there and settle for that. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I mean, I'm not ready to sit there and say that this Ohio State defense is magically going to become the 85 Bears in like 2 weeks. Probably not going to be the case. But I did speak to somebody around the program who was saying, people are really sleeping on this defense. I mean, we're not as bad as people want to say we are. And, I think there is some truth to it. I mean, we do have visions in our heads of some of the shortcomings last year. That team up north running the ball down Ohio State's throat. Ohio State falling down a couple of scores multiple times in the Rose Bowl. Not being able to tackle Utah's Cameron Rising to save their life. I mean, there were a lot of issues. The issues they had against Oregon didn't disguise a lot of the things that Oregon did. Ohio State just couldn't stop them. So, I mean, there's reason to have concerns, but it's not like Ohio State doesn't have pieces. It's a matter of having a plan for those pieces. And I really have a lot of faith that it will be there. Now, we're talking about Notre Dame, and that's week 1. There's not a lot of time to get your feet wet. This isn't college basketball. There isn't a secret scrimmage. There's none of that going on. It's a lot, this is going to be game 1 out of the box. We're not going to know what we're not going to know. But I think that Ohio State's going to have some plans there. So, we'll see. So let me check that one off. I think Here we go. We lose a lot on the O-line after this year. Will we hit the transfer portal for experienced players? Maybe. Potentially. Possibly. I guess it just really depends on what happens there, because they are going to lose a lot, and you're going to have guys who are going to have decisions. So does anybody leave early? I mean, what happens in terms of outflow from Ohio State on the portal? I mean, who kind of steps up there? So the portal is always an option. I can assure you that Mark Pantoni and his staff are in the portal every single day, making sure they know what's going on, who's there, who's available. And this means that you're having to scout every team in the nation to kind of be aware of what's going on. Ohio State was able to go and get Jonah Jackson not too many years ago, and that worked out fantastic. So it's certainly there. It's certainly in the realm of possibility. You would like to see it a case of Ohio State's development is able to sit there and produce 8 linemen for the 23 season and not have to go out of house, because that means that your evaluations are right and your development's on point and everything else. But we know that doesn't always work out, even under the best of circumstances. So you can't close your mind to the potential of going to the portal. Is it a 100% absolute that it's going to happen? No, nothing is an absolute, really, in my opinion. But I think that it's something that is a definite possibility. And the goal is that even if you are recruiting at a high level, you still don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to speak ill into existence, but injuries happen, things like that happen, and you suddenly realize you're not as deep as you thought you were. So we'll see from there. But if I'm an offensive lineman kind of buried on the depth chart right now, I know it's time to go or get off the pot, because Ohio State is going to have to sit there and have a little bit of a remake of that room after this season, because it's time to go. Yakov asking me about the Ole Miss campus. I have spent some time there, very little time. My wife is an Ole Miss alum. We went there in the summer. It was extremely hot. I remember that. We went to the Grove. Unfortunately, there was not a tailgate going on at the time, being the dog days of summer. It was a good looking campus, but I saw it in such an off time and in such a small sample. I'll tell you this, that the sorority houses there, no, I didn't go into any of them. The sorority houses there were ginormous. They make they make a lot of the sorority houses on the Ohio State campus look like shacks. It's kind of amazing just how the Greek culture is down there. I would like to get down there to see a game at some point, but unfortunately, it's not as simple as just driving to Bloomington or West Lafayette or whatever. I mean, you're either all day in a car for a significant drive. I mean, I think it's 9 hours to Memphis, and then it's another hour plus to Oxford, or you're flying into Memphis or doing something. But it's on my bucket list. But so is going to Army, Navy, and some other things. I've got some games that I would like to see at some point in my career. And I keep kicking that can down the road, and I got to stop doing that as I'm getting older and older and older. Let me kind of go through here. We're closing in on an hour and a half, so we're going to start decelerating here in a minute. But I'm going to ask you once again, if you're enjoying the show, be sure to give us a thumbs up. That certainly helps us with the algorithm. Be sure to like the channel, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for the notification, all of that good stuff. If you're listening to us, not watching us on YouTube, but listening to us on any of your favorite podcasting platforms, give us a 5-star review. That helps us with the algorithm and everything, and allows more people to find our content. More people find our content, I'm more likely to do more shows. It's a win-win, unless you don't like the show. And if you don't like the show, then what are you doing here? But, we got all that going on. So please, give us that thumbs up, 5-star review, all of that. Even a super chat. Again, we haven't been doing enough of these shows, so we'll get into more of a routine. You'll be used to seeing this ugly mug on here more with live shows, I promise. But I think we're kind of getting to it. So let me kind of go through my notes. What else I had? Let's talk a little bit about the NBA draft. Ohio State had a pair of players drafted Last night, on Thursday night, Malachi Branham going number 20 overall in the first round to the San Antonio Spurs. E.J. Liddell going in the second round, number 41 overall to the New Orleans Pelicans. What were your thoughts on that? Were they taken too high, too low, just right? I know a lot of us felt that E.J. Liddell had the potential of being a first rounder. He sat on Jay Billis's best available at the top of the list for a lot of picks right there. But EJ is what EJ is, and he's kind of an undersized player for his position, and you're going from the collegiate ranks to the pro ranks. So it's, sometimes being unique is not always the best. And he doesn't necessarily have the NBA body for the position that he plays. He's developed his game a lot more. He's much more of an outside threat. But 41 kind of surprised me. Branham at 20 was, not shocking. That was in the range. I mean, I'm not a Cavs fan, for full disclosure. It would not have sucked to see Branham go to the Cavs, but certainly they went in a different direction. He had to wait a couple more picks to have his name taken off the board. But, for people that are trying to sit there and say that, there are so many things inherently wrong with the Ohio State men's basketball program, to have two players drafted on Thursday night is not the worst thing in the world. But it does create an issue of where we have a completely brand new Ohio State roster, save Zed Key, save Eugene Brown, save Kalen Etzler, who was on the team but redshirted last year. A team that's going to be going into Cameron Indoor November 30th, a Big Ten ACC Challenge, Ohio State going to Duke. So that will be interesting. That will be interesting to see what happens there. Adam's going to get a tattoo of me on his inner thigh. Let me give you a picture of when I had hair and was about 50 pounds lighter. If you're going to do it, make sure you do it when I was at peak newness and not where I'm at right now. Kevin, you are the soul of Tony and Tom. Keep them on the Buckeyes path. I do what I can. I mean, it's like herding cats. Very disobedient cats at times, but I do what I can with those two. Last question. Let me get to this before I get to my last question to you. Any team on the schedule concern you for a hard win? I assume we're getting back to football, because this is a football show at the end of the day. I know I brought up basketball for a minute. My Phil Steele magazine should be here today or tomorrow. Let me go in and do some reading. I mean, I certainly could talk about any of the 12 teams on Ohio State's regular season schedule well enough to be on a radio show, but I don't know all the finer points. I mean, is Wisconsin going to move off of the anemic level in terms of its offense? What's coming back in terms of linebacker there? Are they gonna have a defensive line? Speaking of anemic offenses, what can we expect out of Iowa? I mean, fortunately for Ohio State, you don't have to go and play in those buildings where, strange things happen. I mean, obviously Notre Dame presents its concerns, just because I think that Notre Dame, even though I'm not convinced that it's one of their better offenses, still I think can exploit some things on a defense that's still kind of finding itself here in week 1. Of Ohio State and Notre Dame played each other in week 8. I'm not concerned. I still like Ohio State to win by 2 touchdowns. So, but that's where I am here June 24th. Talk to me in 2 months, and you'll see where I stand at that point, as the game is much closer. Of course, we can sit there and say the team up north, I can't deny 42-27 happened. You can't be a score denier. You just can't do it. The game happened. It's real. You got to just bounce back and be better. Ohio State isn't going to let the weather sneak up on it. I don't think you can really let the weather be an excuse. They're going to be the people on the other side of the aisle who are going to say that Ohio State has just gotten too finessey and too soft. I think that people like the offensive line and Trevion Henderson and Mayan Williams are going to take that as a direct insult. And I don't think that we're going to see them being soft. I think we're going to see a Michigan team that loses a lot from last year. Daxton Hill's not going to be there. Aiden Hutchinson, David Ojabo are not going to be there. Hassan Haskins is not going to be there. Unfortunately for them, they've got a full season to kind of replace some of these guys, but I mean, it's not a case of where it's going to be the same team. So we're going to see. I like Ohio State to win that one in a convincing manner, but that's here on the 24th. So, kind of take it for what it's worth. Last question. I wish I had a polling feature on this platform, but I don't. If I do, I don't know how to use it. Top Gun Maverick. Have you seen it yet? Yes? No? Have you seen it? Are you going to see it again? Did you like it? I saw it on, was it opening night? It may have been opening night. I really liked it. I'm thinking about seeing it again if I can go find it in IMAX somewhere. I just saw it kind of at the local theater. It was a great movie to go watch and not think about. You didn't have to think about too much. It was a good escape. I was able to. I never turned my phone off, but I put my phone in my pocket. Didn't wear my Apple Watch. Wasn't getting text messages or anything else. I think it's going to have a big weekend for the July 4th. I think a lot of people are going to go and see it again. I don't think there are a lot of people who have not seen it who have been like, "Well, I'm unaware of this Top Gun Maverick movie. What's this?" So I think it goes to show that even though Hollywood has really become a bunch of retreads and remakes of movies and sequels and everything else, that one that's done well, that doesn't take itself too seriously, can be successful. And let's not forget that this movie was in the can for like 2 years, and then the world went crazy, and the studio's like, well, we're not going to release it directly to HBO Go. That's certainly not going to happen. So we're going to hold on to it. And then they held on to it and held on to it. And it sat in the can and aged for 2 years. But like a fine wine, it just got better and better and better, because there's not a lot of stuff we can agree upon as a country, as a society. So being able to rally around that movie, and I'm sure there's some people who are like, I don't want to see it. Oh, fine. Don't. But, I think that being able to rally around that was a good thing. My guy, Treasure of the Torah, how are you doing, man? I'm doing well. Family's doing well. Hope you're doing well. Sorry you're getting in here at the tail end of the show. We've been on for an hour 37. I'm starting to lose my voice, so we're getting toward the end. But it always brightens my day to see you, Treasure, to see all of our great regulars and our first-time viewers. So, again, that's the reason you set the bell. Don't miss a single show. Don't miss my shows. Don't miss Gibbs in the Bank. Don't miss Morning Scoop. Don't miss Buckeye Weekly. Don't miss Around the Oval. I think I've hit all of the major shows. So, that you got that there. Treasure has not seen the movie, but the original was great. The original was fantastic. I've seen the original, no lie, at least 24 times, probably more. Yes. Spoiler alert, America does well in Top Gun Maverick. I don't think that anybody's going to be surprised by that. So there is a little bit of retread there. But I think they did a really good job with it. Just from the cinematography, it was fantastic. Now, good friend of mine, member on the boards, Tyler Smith, who is a big guy in terms of artistic movies and everything else. I'm sure he could appreciate the cinematography, but if it's not Fellini, it's not for him. So I need to ask him point blank if he's seen the movie. Jay Moore has seen it. Devin has seen it. It's a good time. Not a lot else out in the theaters that I'm really that excited about. The new Elvis movie, I'm showing my age there. I think there's probably a large segment of the population that's like, who? What? I'm probably not going to see it in the theater at $14 a pop or whatever it is, but that's going to be an HBO movie. Treasure, thank you for the super chat. Let me get that here on the screen. Kevin, you already know you're my family for real, for real. Stay blessed. Treasure of the Torah. You are too kind. Appreciate it so much. It's people like you that make this all possible for us to be able to do this. But everybody who's in our family here, who's been on the show, whether for 1 minute or for the entire minute or hour 40, y'all make this possible. Without you, it'd just be me talking to myself. And I do that enough working from home or talking to the dog and the cat, and they don't appreciate it anymore. They've heard all of my stories. A lot of them are generally new to you, so that's why this works out so well. But I'm going to put out one last call for questions. I feel like I can't end a show on a significant super chat. I feel like I need to stick around a little bit so Treasure can enjoy the show. But once again, the replay will be there on YouTube for those that want to get it there. This, of course, will be on all of your great podcasting channels, iTunes, Spreaker, etc., etc., etc. It'll be on all of those, so you'll have the opportunity to listen to it there as well. It's Friday the 24th. I'm calling my shot right now. We're going to do another live show next week, probably on Friday. But as I said too, I'm looking at doing on my own channel more of just a general sports pop culture show. That may not be your cup of tea. That's fine. It may be something that other people enjoy more. That's fine too. I'll be sure to put that on my social media channels so you're able to find that. It's not a show that's competing with Big Me Kickoff. It's just another outlet. Maybe I start doing more shows. I start feeling like I need to do more Big Me Kickoffs. And of course, too, as we get closer to the season, I'm going to start bringing in some more guests. They don't know that I'm going to get in there yet, so I don't want to name anybody, but I've got a list of guests in mind that I want to bring in. We kind of took the summer off from having guests on here, but that way you don't have to listen to me ramble on for an hour and 45 minutes. Let's kind of get through a couple more things. Scott saying to stay safe. Absolutely, stay safe. Beat the heat out there. Not as hot today as it was during some of the camps. I've got to mow the lawn coming up here soon, but not today. Devin, enjoying the show. Thank you so much, Devin. Enjoy having you on here. Yakov, you're right. Treasure may be the poster of the year. So generous. We really enjoy it. Treasure, once again, stay blessed, Kevin. Always happy to come and say what's up, King. Absolutely. Good show. I really appreciate it. I don't want to do just a good show. I want to do a great show. So let's make it a great show next week. Again, we will do that a week from today on Friday. We're going live. No cowards here. We're doing that absolutely. But once again, thank you so much for being part of the show. A lot coming on. We will recap the official visit weekend. Maybe if you talk and ask nicely, I'll do a sort of mock recruiting class. A lot of other things going on. Plenty of stuff to talk about. Be safe. Be well. Be good to one another. And I'll see y'all very soon.